I never thought love could make me feel so small. It wasn't the arguments, or the distance, or even the silence that crept into our relationship like weeds in a garden. No, what broke me was the way she looked at me one evening, her arms crossed, her lips trembling like she'd rehearsed the words in her head 1,000 times, and then she said it. "I think I've outgrown you." 4 words. Just 4. And yet, it felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed the air out of me. I wasn't angry at first. I was numb. Because how do you respond when the person you thought was your forever suddenly tells you that you're no longer enough? You see, I wasn't just her boyfriend. I was the guy who carried her books through college, the guy who stayed up late helping her study, the one who drove 2 hours in the rain just to see her for 30 minutes. I gave her everything. And still, she looked at me like I was some old sweater she'd outworn, something she could fold away in a drawer and forget about. But here's the part that haunts me. The night she ended things, her sister was there. Not in the room. No, but in the house. And while my girlfriend was breaking me down with those words, her sister's eyes followed me every time I passed her in the hallway. It wasn't pity, and it wasn't judgment either. It was something else. Something unsettling. I'll admit, I didn't think much of it at first. I was too busy replaying the breakup over and over in my head, like a broken record I couldn't switch off. But days later, when I tried to move on, when I tried to pretend like I was fine, her sister reached out. And what she said made my blood run cold. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say she'll regret it. No, her words were softer, almost whispered, like a secret too heavy for the air around us. "She may have outgrown you, but I'll never let you go." I froze. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was some cruel joke, or maybe just a poor choice of words. But the way her voice lingered, the way her eyes locked onto mine, it was different. Almost like she'd been waiting for this moment, like she knew something I didn't. That's when the lines between heartbreak and fear began to blur. Because losing the woman I loved was one kind of pain, but realizing that her sister might not be willing to let me walk away, that was something else entirely. And trust me, what came after made me wish the breakup had been the end of the story. Before everything fell apart, I thought we were the kind of couple people envied. Her name was Emily, bright smile, sharp wit, the kind of presence that filled every room she walked into. I met her during my second year of college, in a cramped coffee shop where she spilled her drink all over my notes. She apologized 100 times, offered to rewrite the pages herself, and by the end of that week, we were inseparable. For years, she was my anchor. We studied together, laughed until sunrise, and dreamed about the future. I imagined us in a little house with a garden, maybe a dog, maybe kids running around someday. She never promised those things, but she didn't have to. I believed we were moving in the same direction. But somewhere along the way, things started to change. Emily graduated first, got a great job in the city, and began to surround herself with new people, successful, ambitious, confident. People who seemed to walk with their chins higher, who spoke like every word they said carried weight. I tried to keep up. I worked hard. I supported her. I cheered for every promotion. But the more she grew into that world, the smaller I seemed to become in her eyes. I noticed it in the little things. The way she sighed when I told her about my day. The way her phone lit up with names I didn't know, and she'd smile at them in ways she no longer smiled at me. And yet I stayed. Because I loved her. Because I believed love was enough. That's when her family started playing a bigger role in our lives. Especially her younger sister, Claire. Claire was different from Emily. Where Emily was polished and ambitious, Claire was quiet, observant, almost unnerving at times. She had this way of watching people, like she could see right through their skin and into the thoughts they were too afraid to say out loud. She was 3 years younger, still living with their parents, but she visited often. And when she was around, she noticed things. I'd catch her staring at me during dinners, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Sometimes, she'd ask questions Emily never cared to. "Do you still write? Do you still play guitar?" As if she remembered details her sister had long forgotten. At first, I thought she was just being kind, maybe trying to make me feel less invisible. But the way her eyes lingered, the way her words seemed to carry hidden meanings, it unsettled me. Looking back now, I wonder if the signs were there all along. If Emily had been drifting away, while Claire had been quietly stepping closer, waiting for the moment I'd finally see her. And when Emily finally said those words, "I've outgrown you," I realized I wasn't just losing a girlfriend. I was stepping into something I didn't understand, something that felt far more dangerous. After the breakup, I tried to disappear from their world. I stopped texting Emily, avoided the places we used to go, and convinced myself that time would eventually heal the wound. But moving on wasn't simple, because Claire didn't let it be. It started small. A message on social media, just checking in. Then another, asking how I was holding up. I thought it was harmless. After all, she was Emily's sister. Maybe she just felt bad about what happened. But her messages came more often, and they weren't the kind of words someone uses out of sympathy. You were too good for her anyway. She never saw how much you gave. She doesn't deserve you, but I do. That last one made my stomach twist. I didn't reply, but it didn't stop her. Soon she was showing up where she knew I'd be. Outside the cafe I worked at the park where I jogged, once even waiting near my apartment. Always with the same calm, piercing stare, as if she knew something I didn't. The more I ignored her, the more intense she became. She'd talk about how Emily never appreciated me, how she would have loved me better if I had only chosen her. And the way she said it, it wasn't playful, it wasn't a crush. It was conviction. I tried to brush it off, to convince myself I was overthinking. But late at night, lying in bed, her words echoed louder than Emily's rejection ever did. Then one evening, as I was leaving work, I found something tucked under my windshield wiper. A folded piece of paper. On it, in neat handwriting, were the words, "She may have let you go. I never will." My chest tightened as I looked around the dark parking lot, half expecting her to step out from the shadows. No one was there. But for the first time since the breakup, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was afraid. Because I couldn't tell if Claire wanted to love me or to own me. And deep down, I had the sickening feeling that this was only the beginning. I kept telling myself it was all in my head. That Claire's words, her stares, her sudden appearances, they were nothing more than a girl with a strange way of showing sympathy. But the more I tried to downplay it, the worse it got. One night, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was past midnight. When I looked, there were 15 missed messages. All from Claire. The texts weren't normal. Some were simple. "Are you awake?" Others were unsettling. "I dream about you every night." But the last one froze me. "I'm outside." I pulled back the curtain, and my heart nearly stopped. She was standing at the edge of the parking lot, half hidden by the shadows, staring straight at my window. Not moving, not blinking, just standing there, as if she'd been waiting for me to notice. I wanted to shout, to call someone, but when I looked again, she was gone. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Maybe she was just walking home. Maybe my mind had twisted the image into something darker. But then, when I went to grab my keys, I found another note slipped under my door. This one was different. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, almost desperate. "You don't understand. She doesn't deserve you. I've been watching, waiting, and now it's my turn. Don't run from me." Every word crawled under my skin. This wasn't some harmless obsession anymore. It felt dangerous. I tried blocking her number. I ignored every message, every call. But it didn't matter. Claire had a way of finding me. Once, at the grocery store, she walked past me, brushing her hand against mine without saying a word. Another time, she left flowers outside my door with a note that said, "Imagine if these were from her. But they're from me." The tension was unbearable. Every corner I turned, I expected to see her. Every knock on my door made my pulse race. And the worst part? Emily had no idea. She thought the breakup was clean, final. She didn't know her sister was circling me like a predator who'd finally found prey. Then came the night that changed everything. I was home, lights dimmed, trying to lose myself in the static of the TV when I heard the faintest sound, a floorboard creaking. At first, I brushed it off. Old buildings make noises. But then I heard it again. Slow, measured, coming from inside the apartment. My skin went cold. I grabbed my phone, flashlight in hand, and crept toward the sound. The living room was empty. The kitchen too. But when I reached the hallway, I saw it, just barely. The shadow of someone slipping into my bedroom. And in that instant, I knew. Claire wasn't outside anymore. She was already inside. I forced myself toward the bedroom, every step heavy, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear through my chest. I swung the door open, ready to confront her, ready to shout, to demand she leave me alone. But the room was empty. The window was closed, the closet door cracked just the same as always. No sign of her, I almost convinced myself my mind was playing tricks until I noticed something on the bed. It was a photo, a printed picture of me and Emily from years ago. Only something was wrong. Emily's face had been scratched out, torn so violently that the paper was shredded where her smile used to be. And scrawled across the bottom, in thick black marker, were the words, "She doesn't deserve to be in the picture. Only I do." I dropped the photo, my hands shaking. That's when my phone buzzed again. A new message. From an unknown number this time. I told her everything tonight. My stomach flipped. Who? Emily? What did she tell her? And then the next message came through. 5 words that made my blood run cold. She's not your problem anymore. The message burned in my mind. She's not your problem anymore. I didn't wait. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and drove straight to Emily's apartment. The kind of panic that twists your stomach until you can hardly breathe, pushing me forward. When I got there, the door was unlocked. My voice cracked as I shouted her name, rushing inside. The place was dark, too quiet, except for a faint sound, someone sobbing. I followed it into the kitchen. Emily sat on the floor, her hands trembling, mascara streaked down her face. She looked up at me, wide-eyed, like she wasn't sure if I was real. She told me everything, Emily whispered. About how she's been following you. About how she wants to take me out of the picture completely. Before I could respond, a noise came from the hallway. Claire stepped into the light, calm as ever, her hands clasped behind her back. You shouldn't have come, she said softly. I wanted her to understand that she's the one who doesn't belong. My chest tightened as she revealed what she'd been hiding. Not a knife, not a weapon, a small, burned photo. Our family dinner, the 3 of us smiling. Except this time, my face had been scratched out. She never deserved you, Claire said, her voice trembling now. But maybe I don't either. And with that, she dropped the photo, turned, and fled through the door before I could stop her. Emily collapsed into my arms, shaking, terrified. But even as I held her, even as relief flooded through me that she was safe, a darker thought crept in. Claire hadn't tried to hurt us that night. She'd only shown us a glimpse of what she could do. And the way she disappeared into the night made one thing very clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. In the days after that night, everything felt like it was hanging by a thread. Emily and I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every knock on the door, even the sound of footsteps in the hallway made us jump. It wasn't just fear. It was the gnawing uncertainty of what Claire might do next. Emily finally confessed the truth. Claire had been open with her earlier that evening, confessing feelings she'd carried for years. But when Emily tried to shut her down, to tell her it was wrong, Claire's calm mask cracked. She said Emily had stolen her life, stolen me, stolen everything. That's when she stormed out and sent me that message. Knowing that, it almost hurt worse. Because for as much as I wanted to be angry, a part of me pitied her. Claire wasn't some random stranger. She was family. Someone who had been close enough to see the cracks in my relationship with Emily. Close enough to wedge herself into the empty spaces love had left behind. The police were notified, of course, but without evidence of a crime, just notes, messages, and a terrifying obsession, there wasn't much they could do. We were told to stay vigilant, which was another way of saying, you're on your own. So Emily and I tried to rebuild. We talked more than we had in months. We admitted the ways we had drifted apart, the things we'd taken for granted. Strangely, it was Claire's obsession that forced us to face our own truth. We'd lost each other long before the breakup. And maybe, just maybe, we could find each other again. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Sometimes, when I walked home at night, I'd feel eyes on me. Once, I swore I saw a figure across the street. Dark coat, long hair, vanished the moment I blinked. Maybe it was her. Maybe it wasn't. But the thought lingered. Weeks passed. Then months. The messages stopped, the flowers disappeared, and the world slowly returned to normal. Emily and I weren't perfect, but we were trying. We owed ourselves that. One evening, as we sat on the balcony, the sun dipping low and painting the sky orange, Emily reached over and squeezed my hand. Do you think she's gone for good? She asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to promise her that the nightmare was over. But all I could do was glance at the horizon, at the long shadows stretching into the distance, and admit the truth neither of us wanted to say out loud. I don't know. Because some obsessions don't end. They wait. They grow quiet, slip underground, And then, when you least expect it, they return. And somewhere out there, I knew Claire was still holding on to the words she'd once whispered to me in the dark. Words that would never let me rest easy. I'll never let you go.